I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
And I'm all out of bubblegum!
Astro Radio Z is a horror, cult, exploitation film podcast by filmmakers, critics, musicians, journalists, and fans for the film obsessed. Here is your host, Derek Carey.
I hate listening to podcasts about films and horror movies, being somebody that just like you guys, and this is not to put anybody on a pedestal, but this is just the truth of the matter. I've been an obsessive horror fan since I was a little kid. And that doesn't mean that I was obsessive in the way that, man, I watched The Shining 57 times every single year of my life. I was obsessive where it wasn't just The Shining and The Exorcist and Nightmare on Elm Street that I watched. I watched fucking Nightmare City and fucking Skullduggery and The Capture of Bigfoot and all the fucking worthless bullshit that you could ever find at any video store ever. I would fucking rent that bullshit and I'd watch all of it. So at this point in my life, for almost 42 years old, when I go into listening to a new horror podcast, if that podcaster, and bless your heart, you want to start a podcast, you want to sit and talk about horror movies, you want to let everybody know how much of a big, huge fan you are because you really loved Hereditary. But if you get on there to talk about Suspiria and you just watched it for the first time this week, you really don't have an opinion about that movie.
Sick burn.
Not one I want to listen to.
Sick burn. Tell him, Grandpa. Tell him.
I am a grandpa. That's what this Astro Radio Z essentially is, a grandpa podcast.
Yeah.
It's a podcast for people that want you to get off their fucking lawn. Are tired of you walking on the goddamn fucking lawn, and want you to come in and listen to a bunch of old guys with some beers or whatever libation of choice that you have, and sit and talk about some trashy ass movies. And here we are. And I'm speaking, obviously. I'm Derek, the host of this stupid show, and with me today I have the host of Motion Picture Massacre, Mr. Vaughn.
I love that brain fart right there. That was great. That's great.
No, it's called Building Tension.
Okay.
It's called Building Something. It's not a brain fart, Vaughn.
Right. I
never have brain farts on this show.
No.
Or in life in general. So welcome back to this show, Vaughn. How you doing tonight?
Doing well. How are you?
I am wonderful. I didn't think when I came back to Astro Radio Z, the first thing I was going to want to talk about is Andy Milligan of all motherfuckers on the face of the planet. But here we are.
Yay.
We're here to do another Director's Series episode on, of all people, Andy fucking Milligan.
Yeah.
What do you think of this?
I'm so happy.
Why are you so happy about this?
Because I think this is the year. You know what I mean? There's a whole bunch of companies putting out stuff last year, and then like Severin is putting out a big box set this year. So I think it's the year for like Andy Milligan. I think it's the year for people to go back and go, hey, this weird old gay guy who made really bad films really deserves our attention.
If you would have caught me 15 years ago,
yeah,
and said those exact same words, I would have told you to fuck off. Because that was when I saw the immortal movie, The Rats Are Coming, The Werewolves Are Here, which has always been, since probably 15, 16 years ago, my least favorite movie of all time. It's well documented on this podcast that I think that is the biggest piece of shit probably ever made. That now here we are sitting in 2019 that I'm willing to sit and watch through and do a marathon this month of all the Andy Milligan movies.
Yeah.
Oh man, to hear somebody say that this is the year of Andy Milligan, man, only Trump could be the president of this world, of this America.
The room, right?
Trump's America we're living in.
The world's gone topsy-turvy. Yeah.
I don't even know what to say, but you aren't even the one to blame for this episode coming into fruition.
Not really, no.
The man next to you, Mr. Evan. What do you want to go by, Evan? You just want to go by Evan?
Yep.
Evan was razzing me on the Twitter. He's been a follower of my podcast for a while. Now he's a decent dude. He starts razzing me on the Twitter because I decide to throw some shade because that's what Twitter is. You just go on there to talk bullshit and be an idiot. I forgot who it was. I think it was Severin was promoting their new releases because I think they're releasing some blues of The Rats Are Coming, The Werewolves Are Here, and the Ghastly Ones. Some double feature bullshit of two movies nobody should ever fucking watch.
Are you kidding?
And they're like, oh, go ahead.
4K scan. I want a 4K scan of the Rats Are Coming, The Werewolves Are Here. I want it as crisp as possible. I want to be able to see the pubes that are stuck on the film. You know what I mean? Because I know that Andy probably fuck it at one time. Like, oh, this is my love.
Those pubes are the only things that'll be in focus that entire fucking movie.
The rats were in focus. Oh, wait, there were rats.
So I'm throwing shade to Severin like, oh, yeah, that's a wonderful double feature of movies to fall asleep to.
Yep.
And then Evan chimes in, well, Derek, you should know that Nightbirds is a wonderful film and you should watch this and that. And I literally am turned into the heel of this whole situation because then Severin chimes in and a bunch of other people chime in. And I'm sitting here like with my thumb up my ass going, okay, well, I guess I have to rewatch some Andy Milligan movies because I'm an idiot who always thinks that at some point a film could change for me because as people, you know, we're always changing, we're always evolving, we're growing, we're never the same. I'm the same way about movies. I'll go back and I'll revisit something.
Yeah.
So here we are. I watched I still haven't watched them all yet. Because I had to take a break. I got through like 11 of his movies and my brain just shut down and said, Derek, no more. I can't do this fucking shit anymore. What the fuck are you doing to me? And you want to know what movie it was, Vaughn, that broke me? The Weirdo. I had to stop. After The Weirdo. And the reason I'm saying that to Vaughn is because in an upcoming episode of his podcast, we're going to be covering The Rats Are Coming, The Werewolves Are Here. I think out of sadistic delight, I'm sure that's why Vaughn is having me watch this fucking piece of shit. Yeah. That in The Weirdo, we're going to be talking about in his podcast. So watch out. Motion Picture Massacre. We're going to future episode. You'll be hearing that. But it was The Weirdo.
Yeah, the two that kind of broke me when I first watched them. I was like, oh my God, what the fuck did this guy do? And he that's a remake, The Weirdo. It's not even like an original concept that it came out in like 88, 87. He made that in like the 70s and it got lost and he decided to remake it. So it's even better. Well, there are films that we wish that were lost by his, that he just pretty much said, hey, I'm going to take the same script from this one and put them in European clothing. All right, whatever. I'll get to that when we get there. It's actually the two films after these two films we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah. What made you want to seek out Andy Milligan and actually watch any of this shit?
Well, a friend of mine was doing a podcast. My friend Stephen Thompson, he was doing a podcast called Just Another Fucking Movie Podcast back in the day. And he was a fan of Milligan's work. And he said, hey, you know, like we were just kind of being friends and stuff like that. And he's like, hey, you know, you want to do a podcast? I said, sure. He's like, well, you're going to do a retrospective of all his work. I was like, okay. I watched him over the course of a week. We recorded like a 6-hour podcast because it's just like you talk about every film, even though like the ones where it's like, okay, this is the same film, just with different clothing.
Right.
We just kind of went through it real quick, but it's still like a 4 or 5 hour podcast. Recorded it, all is well. He gets back to me a couple days later and Audacity ate it. And forever I've been going, fuck, why did I waste all that time? But I've kind of rewatched his films over the years. And like, especially when I got a copy of Nightbirds, and that's when I really started to reassess his work. And I was like, wait, this guy actually was pretty good. Like, where was when did the railroad spike go through his head and really fuck him up?
That's a good question.
You know? And there are some films like after the two we're talking about here, there's a couple of stinkers, and then he goes back, and like it's like a high and then a huge low and then a high and then the low just never ends. It's like after one point it just keeps going down and down and down into the depths of hell. But I don't know. I think it's because there's a lot of these guys that like these lo-fi kind of grindhouse pioneers who are doing films that don't get the recognition that maybe one or two films. And it's just like, you know what? He did like 30 something movies. 12 of them are lost. And it's like, I need to chomp at the bit of this and champion this guy every once in a while because it's, I love it. I love like guys like, John Waters and stuff like that. But I think if there wasn't a guy like Andy Milligan, I don't think John Waters would be around.
Oh, I think you're 100%. Yeah, that's absolutely, especially after watching at least one of the films that we're going to talk about tonight.
Right.
It's very apparent that John Waters and him had a lot in common.
I've seen them. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also a huge fan of Ed Wood.
Yeah.
And the spirit of somebody that by any means necessary wants to make a film and, taste be damned, budget be damned, resources be damned. I'm going to make this movie. There's something charming about that.
Yeah. I mean, there's certain things about Wood that I don't particularly care about, the spousal abuse and the, that kind of stuff. You can overlook it. A lot of people these days have this kind of really hard problem with looking at art for art's sake and not looking at the people who produce it. Like, with Polanski, he's a rapist, fine. Or all these other people who've worked on and made movies over the years. I mean, there's certain people that I can go, I'm never going to, look at their work and never be like critical on it because I just have a thing about it. But everybody has that kind of thing where they're like, this guy was a real asshole. I can't watch any of his films. But it's like, you're really giving yourself a disservice to not watch that stuff. Even if it's just trash like this or Wood's work, which I think fluctuates. I think it's always kind of good. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it's just that the fact that he sometimes would get the money, and if he kept the money in the budget and didn't spend it on alcohol, it was a fine film. And then sometimes when he spent all the money on alcohol, it was just like, fuck. Like, it's still a fun fucking film. Like Taken Out in Trade, which is fun as fuck, and it's the weirdest kind of pro-LGBT film you've ever seen in the 70s. But it's you can definitely see that most of that money probably went into his pockets. And he probably paid for a whole bunch of rounds of beer. But it's a great film. And then, and guys like this, it's like, he definitely wasn't given the opportunities to make good movies. He made stuff like, pretty much by the seat of his pants. And like with whatever the hell he can get. But I really admire that kind of shit. I really admire when a guy can just sit there and make a film and do the best. It's much different now when people are still making films and still doing that. It's great. But I think they don't look at those guys that came before them and go, hey, this guy made this piece of shit. And like, I can do the same thing. They just kind of go out there and randomly just make a film that's pretty much as similar as a lot of the films that are made back in the 60s and 70s. It's just that it's not as good, I guess you can say. I don't know.
Well, there's more of an awareness now. There's more of a self-awareness now to the no budget underground guys. And it's very rare that you find somebody that is just so detached from anything. And that's why I think someone like Neil Breen that comes into the zeitgeist who is just like, have you ever watched a movie? Do you even have a concept of how they're constructed, how narrative works, how plot works? It's when somebody like that gets behind a camera that you get interesting things. Not saying Neil Breen is a good director by any stretch of the fucking imagination, but I think when you're talking about people that endure, like their work endures, regardless of the fact that most of their oeuvre maybe is called shit or is awful, but is unique enough that there's a voice there. That's where I want to dig in and give those people a chance. Andy Milligan absolutely is one of those voices. Ed Wood, absolutely one of those voices, regardless of their actual personal histories, the work that has lived on past them, regardless of the fact that some of the stuff is just downright horseshit, just dog shit, it deserves to be talked about. And I don't think, even though it's shocking to me that, as we said before, this may be 2019, the year of Andy Milligan. Jesus fucking Mary and Joseph, that makes that like a little bit of vomit goes into the back of my throat when I say or even think about something like that. I think it's good. It's good when people start talking about stuff outside of Kubrick or Tarantino.
Yeah.
Your Wells. Let's talk about some of these guys that lived, like, of anybody that I've seen in a long time, and it became very apparent to me the more I watched Andy Milligan. His life was definitely reflected in his work.
Especially the early work, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Evan, what made you want to start? Because you obviously started your own personal journey into Andy Milligan's work. What made you want to watch this stuff?
This was just kind of accidental for me. I had gotten the Blu-ray of the two movies we're talking about tonight, and I can't remember why I ordered it. But after I
said everyone who ever picked up an Andy Milligan movie in their life.
Yeah. So I'm pretty fresh at that. Like I had never seen anything. The first thing I watched was Seeds. And
wow, what a movie to start out with.
Yeah, so that was kind of what was interesting about our little back and forth on Twitter was we had actually formed opinions of Andy Milligan with completely separate samples. You had watched movies that I hadn't seen, and I had watched movies you hadn't seen yet. And what I thought was interesting afterwards, seeing some of your comments, was that, yeah, you didn't actually hate the one that I liked. Like it turned out that we were sort of, at least, star rating wise, we were sort of parallel.
We were in the same wheelhouse a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, when I saw Seeds, I got really excited. I thought, oh man, I have got to get into these. And I noticed, like you guys said that the labels were looking at putting more out. And so I was thinking, oh, this is a whole new world that I'm going to be able to get into soon. And then you chimed in and said, it's going to put me to sleep. So I'm really interested to see what happens here, but I can't digest a dozen movies in a day like you can, obviously. So I'm going to watch these as we talk about them. The only movies I've seen so far are Vapor, Seeds, and Monstrosity.
Ooh, boy.
So I've got all the shit in the middle I still haven't seen.
Boy, are you ready?
Fun roller coaster.
Do you really feel that your psyche is ready for the journey we're about to take?
It's not that bad. Shut up. Jesus Christ.
Oh, Vaughn, don't give me that. The reason why, for many years, I had a buddy of mine I used to be in a band with, and he had a copy of Bloodthirsty Butchers and The Rats Are Coming. And he kept pushing them on me like, dude, you got to watch these. You're going to love these.
These are great.
I could not get more than 15 minutes into either of those movies without falling asleep. And I tried for years. These movies were fucking sleeping pills for me. So when I said that on Twitter, I meant it. Literally, I fell asleep to like every time I tried to watch one of these fucking gimmicks, I fucking fell asleep.
Yeah.
But
I can't wait to see.
Oh man, but tonight the movies, obviously you read the title of the episode, the movies we're going to talk about, two of his early movies, Vapors, which is a 30-minute short about two gay men in a bathhouse, and Seeds, which is about as close to an early era John Waters movie as I've ever seen, not made by John Waters.
Yeah.
It is something. It is a force of fucking nature. And these two movies sideswiped me in a way I was not expecting. I think the turnaround for me with Milligan started when I watched all of this out of order, and it's usually not how I sit when I decide I'm going to deep dive into a director. I usually start at the beginning and want to form my opinion with the director as he grows and see where that journey takes him. For some reason, Milligan, because I had already started watching shit out of order in the past, I just started choosing movies. And the movie that finally turned everything around for me, that made me want to go back and watch was Nightbirds.
Okay.
It reminded me a lot of like, you know, the French New Wave. And it was a quiet, understated movie, but sort of absurd. So I was like, there's something here. This is interesting. It's kind of funny. It's depressing. It's weird. And I didn't know if I was supposed to take it seriously or if it was supposed to be a satire. I'm like, okay, there's something to work with here. There isn't just people dressed in dollar store St. Vinny's outfits that they found on the floor talking a bunch of bullshit that nobody cares about for an hour and a half. So I went back and decided to start watching this stuff. So we go into Vapors, the first movie. Now, Evan, would you like to describe what is the plot of Vapors, the movie we're going to start off with here, the short film?
Yeah. Vapors is about two purportedly gay men that are having their first visit to a bathhouse. And it's supposed to be St. Mark's Street bathhouse, which that's in New York City,
New
right?
York,
St. Mark's. So we're introduced to a guy named Thomas, who, you know, we over the opening credits, he's on the bus on the way to this bathhouse, and you kind of get the idea when he's at the counter that this is his first visit, because he doesn't know the way of the world. He doesn't know what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But
he wants to act like he does. He wants to act like this isn't something new to him.
Yeah. Yeah. So he I don't know if he's nervous about doing this or not, but he definitely needs some pointers. And he gets into one of the rooms, and he gets a couple of hints from the frequent bathhouse, guests.
Yeah, like the roaming crows that are just cackling and gaying it up as they run into everybody's room and fucking annoy everybody. It's so beautiful. Those two guys just come in and just harass the shit out of him every fucking like 2 or 3 minutes, which I really thought was a great kind of way to break up the tension in that film. Is have these two, it's from two, and then by the end of it, it's like 5 or 6 guys run into the room.
Yeah, and our main characters describe it as sort of like an insane asylum. Yeah, because all these queens running around, and and they're doing the presentation. They're talking in this effeminate manner and being, the standard sort of
the stereotypical, and so anyway, Thomas is basically he's got his rules. Basically, he goes into a room and he leaves the door open ajar, turns out the light, and that's supposed to be how you get a trick. And he happens to attract a guy whose visit is also his first.
Yeah,
and then basically the movie, the 30 minutes is the conversation that these two guys have as they get to know each other. Right. And man, it's really engaging. Yeah. I think it's really engaging because it really contrasts, these two dudes and what they want to get out of this encounter with all the crazy people.
Yeah,
right. And it gets pretty moving. The guy that comes into his room his name is Mr. Jaffrey, I think, or Jaffe.
Jaffe, yes.
Jaffe?
Played by Robert Dada.
Yeah, he seems to have a different motive for this visit. He does. I don't know if he came in with the intention of having his first fling at the bathhouse or not, but it doesn't turn out to be his first fling. It turns out to be something else that he's doing. Something else that he's like a confessional.
Well, I think that's 100% what this is, and the movie itself is kind of like a fly on the wall experience. It's so unlike just about any other Milligan movie you'll ever watch. The only other movie I would probably liken this to is Fleshpot on 42nd Street. Very fly on the wall, kind of like a slice of life type film. It's soft, it's understated, and the conversations that are had between the actors and the portrayals of these characters feel very, very real. And Mr. Jaffe, who is the gentleman who comes upon Thomas, who's the main character of this film, the gay man who you described came in but tried to act like he had been there before, but really was kind of learning the ropes. We come to find out as they are talking to each other and their guards start to be let down, because I think, Thomas was under the impression he just had to show up there and, he was going to have, he just had to act cool, and he was, maybe get his dick sucked, have a little fun, do whatever. But then this guy comes in and totally throws that game plan out the window, because he's having a real conversation, engaging, affectionate conversation with another person, that all of a sudden now it's not about sex whatsoever, even though the walls are lined with huge drawings of cocks and all this other shit. You come to find out that Mr. Jaffe is actually a straight man who's married, and in a horrible marriage, because a year prior to this day, his son died in a drowning accident. And the story turns really dark. Not dark in the way that it's, something really bad happens. It's just very real. And it's not the light, fluttery kind of atmosphere that outside of that room, the queens are projecting, that are constantly shrill, constantly running in, which is a lot of what Milligan's other work is like. Very in your face and shrill. But in this room, it's almost like these two guys could have been in a coffee shop. They could have been anywhere other than this place, but it just happened to be in this one place. Now, per what you were asking, whether or not you think that, was he really gay? Was he there for that experience? And this was my own opinion, and this after watching it a couple times, because the first time I really liked this movie. The second time I loved this movie. Yeah. Everything about this movie just felt so genuine and real that only somebody that lived this life could tell this story this way and have the perspective that this movie gives. But my thought is that he's there talking to Thomas about his son and about losing him and about how much he misses him, and how it was nice to be there with Thomas, because maybe his son was gay. Yeah. And I have a feeling maybe this is like a way for him to reconnect and have a little bit of that in his life again, without having his son there. What did you think, Vaughn? Yeah, I mean, I kind of get that. I mean, what I get with Jaffe is that when he first walks into the room, he kind of says that he's been there for a couple of hours, because I know that from when I've read about bathhouses back in the day, was that they were kind of a mix of, the kind of gay kind of get your thing on. There were some and then there's some where there were actually elite businesses where actually people went to go, bathe and stuff like that, and sometimes those people went to the more seedier ones because they can be left alone. You know what I mean? And like, it seems like that's what he wanted to be. He wanted to be left alone, and he just kind of coincidentally just walked in his room, not aware that somebody, not aware of the rules, because he sees an open door with a light off. Click the light on, and there's somebody sitting there. He doesn't know what the hell's going on. But yeah, I can kind of agree with you that maybe his son was either gay or he just needed some kind of confidant that was outside of his own circle to kind of talk about this, because maybe he hasn't been able to because of his wife, and because his life is so kind of that kind of straight and narrow, and normal, manly men, we don't talk about our feelings, we don't talk about the things that have happened in our lives. Especially back then in like the 60s. It was all that bullshit was still around. Yeah. So yeah, it does feel like it could be either that, or he just needed someone to confide into, and kind of keep it outside of the world that he lives in. And the sad, it's a really sad fucking story. It's because it just goes like, and it's like for a half hour, I was like, oh, this is. You don't realize it's going to be a half hour until the ending hits, and it has to be this. It's like we got to put a shocker at the ending, and
and we have to make it some kind of like, you know, like this is going to be some kind of grimy film that's going to be played in the middle of 2 other films. But yeah, you can definitely tell that, yeah, that Milligan was, you know, he knew about this kind of life and he knew about this work. You know, the stories are that he was, you know, an out homosexual at that time, which is very rare for people to be out in the 60s. He worked a lot.
Too.
Yeah, he worked really, a lot in theater, like a lot of independent New York theater. So like the underground New York theater that was going on around that time. And it was a little more open and a little more kind of, you know, there was a lot more going on where people can express themselves more openly in that kind of stuff. But yeah, I can get around what you're thinking there. But,
well, my main thing is that a lot of what the movie centers around and the themes that I caught on with were just male experience dealing with sexuality and relating to other people in general, because Mr. Jaffe, a lot of the conversation that he has during the film is about, you know, his wife and how they've completely become fractured and they don't talk to each other. They don't see each other. When he gets home from work, she leaves and is out of there, and he has to constantly pick up after her feminine hygiene products, and there's huge conversations between the two of the guys about how disgusting that was. Just like this whole experience of people that just aren't comfortable with women confiding in other men.
And it's funny that it's a gay man and a straight man, because they're both not very kind of comfortable. I mean, no offense, we all have had wives or girlfriends when they leave their shit around that we don't particularly want to deal with. It's like, it's like nuclear holocaust. It's like you're wearing the oven mitts and you're trying to move that shit around because you just don't want to deal with any of it. You know,
but do you put those oven mitts back in the little cabinet there so nobody knows?
I try to find ones that look exactly the same and throw those out. So she doesn't notice. I just, these are perfect. Buy them and throw those ones in. And as I'm driving away from the store, I chuck the other ones out the window. But yeah, I can get that they're trying, that they can relate on certain aspects of what he's talking about. And the other character, you can see that it's definitely that he feels that, like, not like his life's a waste, but he's lost a lot of things coming out in that time period, because there's that whole thing after Joffrey leaves, where he's just, completely heartbroken about the whole thing. Well,
because Mr. Jaffe or whatever the fuck goes out and decides he's going to leave, but leaves him with this huge flower, which was essentially a symbol of his child's death.
Yeah.
I thought about that. It just came to me today, actually, a few hours ago. I think that flower was going to the grave site.
Yes, it was.
Okay. You agree. So it took me a while to get that. And he gives it to Thomas instead.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what you're referring to, Vaughn, he has this melancholy that comes on once Mr. Jaffe leaves Thomas. All of a sudden,
I feel that Thomas has this melancholy through the whole thing, from him sitting in the room waiting. He's not eagerly waiting for someone to show up.
Yes,
he's it feels like he's doing this kind of not out of desperation, but
loneliness.
It seems like he's loneliness. Yeah, he seems like he's very lonely, and he needs to. And because the guys who constantly run into the room, he does not like at all, because they're catty and they're bitchy and they're these little queens that are just running around talking shit about everybody, and they're kind of like the Greek chorus, I guess you could say, of the episode. And he just cannot stand them at all. Even when they pop up and give him the gift, he's like, get the fuck. He's just like, get out. I don't want you guys in here. Get away. Go away. I don't care what. Like, they keep busting in because they think that they're going to get to see something.
Right.
That the two of them are either having sex or kind of performing or whatnot. So they constantly are running in. And they're probably doing this to everybody, but everybody doesn't give a shit because they're probably like, let them watch. Who cares? Because it just seems like a place like that where it's like people are just sitting in rooms watching other people perform on other people.
Right.
Because they're getting
to wait their turn, essentially.
Yeah. They're getting off in some way. But yeah, he's lonely. He wants to do something. He's not particularly. He's probably heard of these places before, but he's never actually went out and ventured out to them. And he's trying now. And he just, and it's a bummer because it's like, yeah, I'm lonely enough, and the first guy I meet in the place is a dad who's grieving over his dead son, and he's just, it's a real bummer for a guy who's already like really lonely to begin with. And it's like, fuck.
But I think he also felt a real genuine connection with him. And that's what the real bummer of it is that Thomas, down underneath everything, honestly wants that connection with somebody. And then the very end of the film, the way the film ends, another dude walks in looking to get his rocks off. And Thomas is just like,
okay,
well, this will make me feel better momentarily.
Now, is it Evan, you have the Blu-ray, right?
Yeah.
At Vinegar Syndrome Production. Let me ask you a question. Does that bar still on the end of the
It is. It is. I was wondering. I was going to ask you guys. So that final scene, there's a very
the guy comes in, he goes, he pretty much asks him if he's alone. He says, yeah, you'll come in. Yeah. And as he's coming in, he's only wearing like the robe, kind of, right? Well, everybody's wearing that robe.
Bathhouse robes.
Yeah, but he's only wearing the robe and nothing else. And as he opens the robe, you get a quick clip of his cock and then a big black strip, which they probably did for reasons because they probably want to get in trouble for, because at the time, any kind of nudity, unless pornography was still outlawed. And the only way you could see porn in theaters was educational films.
Right.
So that was probably something that he had to do.
Maybe. I didn't know if that was an artistic choice.
No, absolutely it's not. That's censorship.
Yeah, it's definitely him being censored because they probably didn't want to get in trouble. Because that film seemed like it had like a lot of... if you looked at the beginning of that film, it was produced by an actual production company. Like he probably gave them this story and was like, hey, I have an idea. Probably someone he knew. Mm-hmm. And they were like, oh yeah, well, just do it. Give us, cut a film together, whatever it's going to take you, 30 minutes and give us something. And they probably went through and said, oh yeah, this is not going to run. And then they blackbarred it, like pretty much scratched that whole end scene out. Like,
yeah.
Which is too bad. I mean, regardless of the fact if you guys like seeing hanging dong in any movies or like right up in front, but it literally is such a symbol for the sadness of this movie. Is the final shot is essentially just a cock walking at you while this man is wiping away tears
and holding a big flower in his chest. He's wiping away tears as he's about to get impaled. It's like, oh great. Way to really bum the place out. And now let's watch like a Herschel Gordon Lewis film. Like, no, I don't want to do that now. I just want to go home and like, hug my wife or something like that. Like, I don't know. I don't want to be in this shitty, seedy 42nd Street drive-in theater anymore. I want to go home.
Right. I wonder what it must have been like to see this in a theater, in a grindhouse or something. Yeah. Because this is a pretty down. I mean, it's stark black and white, mostly handheld, very understated, no music through this thing. It's like watching a stage production, a little more dynamically shot than a stage production, which would eventually go away in Andy Milligan movies.
What are you talking about?
Okay, come on now. We've decided, Paula and I, Paula is a co-host of mine on another podcast called Podcast at Orgy Castle. She watched a bunch of these with me, and we termed it pulling a Milligan after a while. Is where you just have medium wides to wide shots of people standing directly in the middle of the frame, one light off to the side, and they talk for 10 minutes at a time about nothing.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's fantastic.
So in
a crazy sort of, it's a crazy sort of way. Like we're going to talk about, was it, fuck, I can't think of it now. Seeds of Sin. We're next. I like, and the thing is, if you look at his filmography from 65 till the Ghastly ones, like, Seeds of Sin came out at the same time. Even though allegedly The Naked Witch, the first film he ever released, something weird put out on, but it's considered a lost film. So I don't know if that's the same film. I know that in the 60s they put out 12 or 13 films with the same title. They changed the titles all the time when it would go to different states because they wanted to get a different, this film played here 6 months ago. Let's change the title and we'll put it out again. So I don't know if that's the same film. Like
Well,
this
there's another film like right around that time I thought was the right one called The Naked Witch, and I started watching. I'm like, this is not fucking Andy Milligan.
Well, like all those early films, those early 60 films are all like roughies and kind of like horror movies and stuff like that. So
Well, it seems like they were a little more along the lines, not necessarily of Vapors, but a little more reality based than
a little more
period piece horror movies that he would come.
Well, yeah, especially when you get to this film, the next film we're talking about. But yeah, you could definitely that these were probably taken from some kind of aspect that he may have knew, or maybe he knew people who were in like the prostitution and stuff like that from working in independent cinema.
Yeah,
like or like working in independent theater, because those people all mixed together. So it's probably okay. If you have like he probably has lived or at least seen this kind of crap. So all those films are like that. But there are a lot of roughies, which nothing wrong with roughies. If you have a problem with roughies, you should really get off your high horse and watch a good one every once in a while. It'll really improve your sex life with your wife.
Oh, yeah. Well, it seems like my other podcast is becoming a Roughies podcast for some unknown fucking reason. Seems to be the only thing we watch is rape movies on that podcast. But
there's the word orgy in your title, so rape is it's a good form of an orgy.
Yeah, that's I'm going to slowly walk away from that comment, Evan. When it was all said and done, Vapors, what did you end up walking away with this one? Did you dig this?
I dug this a lot. Yeah. I think it's great. Like I said before, it's engaging. I love watching a movie where it's basically just a conversation and it can keep your attention and keep you wondering what is this about? And then not only that, but think about it afterwards. Like I had that enlightenment today about the flowers, and then what you guys said about the fact that, or the possibility that his son was gay. I hadn't even thought of that. So I really like a script that can sort of dance around the important points. Basically, you have to infer the reality that's behind the script. And so I really enjoyed that. I have a question for you guys. Do you think this is like a pro-gay movie? Like,
absolutely.
Oh, hell yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
Absolutely.
So I couldn't tell because of the portrayal of the goofy, the queens running around. I couldn't tell if that was sort of a sympathetic sort of like, these guys are just having fun, and, we don't have to expect everybody to be so deep and heavy all the time. These guys are having a great time, and we don't
time period
besmirch that.
I think for the time period, it works. And I think if people look at it today, I think it's something that will continue to work. You know what I mean? Because they're with dealing, I'm friends with a lot of gay people, and you have that kind of clique of the kind of Queenie type gays who are they gaggle together and they're very kind of bitchy and stuff like that, and you have the ones who are like they don't particularly like to deal with that type of shit, and you can still see it today. It's a kind of a construct of a concept from way back when homosexuality was still closeted to now where it's out and about. You still have those kind of cliques and stuff like that. Just like with straight culture, you have cliques of people who are into this stuff or that stuff, and they all gather in the same area. So I think it's still I think there's certain things that the independent cinema got right with this stuff, And
this felt like the entire movie and the bathhouse in general felt like a microcosm of that culture. And to me, it really felt like a document of a real experience between two guys. It didn't feel like it was scripted to me. It felt like, obviously it was scripted. It's put together in such a way that it actually has an impactful final act that culminates from everything that came before it. It just had a sort of authenticity that you don't see very often, especially from films of that era concerning this kind of content. None of it's played for laughs, really. I think that even the queens, while they're over the top, there's authenticity to their performances as well, and they're catty in a way that you believe. Well, those are real people.
I feel that they break up a lot of what's going on, to kind of just make people not completely feel like you're just gonna be bombed for the next 30 minutes.
Right,
Like,
right.
They're brought in constantly to kind of like to realign the story. You know what I mean? Like as they keep going deeper and deeper, every time they pop up, it resets itself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you get like a little bit of like, oh, this is just the tension. They're nice tension breakers. It's like, oh, okay, thank God. Okay, now we're gonna be miserable. Okay, they're back. All right.
But even the miserable parts, it's super engaging.
No, yeah, definitely.
Like you feel for these people. So for me, this was a light 30 minutes, even though it's pretty heavy. The movie flew by. Vaughn, at the end of the day, what do you think of this thing?
I think it should be shown at every bar mitzvah in the country. No, I feel that I feel that like now that this is out on Blu-ray, I feel that more people should see it. Because I think it's something that like should be shown. I mean, it could be shown in like schools and stuff like that if you want to kind of give an idea of homosexuality on a different time period. And it could be a positive thing. It's just that the fact that it was made by an independent director, it's an independent film, it's a little sleazy. Especially that ending is, it's just like, oh, we need to keep these people in the seats. They're not going to, they're going to want to slit their wrist by the end of this episode. Oh, wait.
There's no cock in this fucking movie.
Hanging dong right there at the end. All right, I'm still in. Okay. bring on Teenage Mother. I'm ready for that movie.
The Trip. We're ready for the Trip right now.
Yeah.
So, Mother. Yeah,
oh my gosh. So 1965 Vapors, all around thumbs up on this one. Now let's move on to his next movie. Obviously, he had a ton of movies, as Vaughn had said, that were lost to time. Distributors either took them, the prints, they were in grindhouses and they got lost, or he had them and got lost in moves. And
8 in total.
There's a bunch of them. They all sound great. Here's some of the titles: The Naked Witch, The Gay Life, Compass Rose, The Degenerates, The Promiscuous Sex, Depraved, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. I mean, so many titles that I would love to see. The Filthy Five.
Yeah.
That sounds so much better than The Hateful Eight in every way. Give me The Filthy Five every fucking day of the week. But the next movie we'll talk about is Seeds. Seeds of Sin from 1968. But first, we're going to take a little break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some shrill incest. So much shrill incest. So stick around, folks.
This could scare you.
I was being trained to be a warlock. I was being trained with witches that were in the religion.
The story about the digging, the hearing of the sounds from hell is very real.
After, Papa tells us to hold the knife, and then he puts his big hand on. He pushes the H into the knife, cuts it.
You couldn't speak to the devil right away. You had to earn your right to speak to the devil.
I listened to a tape recording. There were infants crying, children crying, and adults chanting.
If you mess with the devil, he'll kill you, he'll kill your family.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
featured band this week, Devil Master. That's from their EP, Inhabit the Corpse. And that's the track, Blood on My Shroud. And welcome to a new beginning for the Stillborn Goat Heavy Metal Podcast. We're taking what we did before, and we're going to truncate it down and fit it into the new Astro Radio Z. And so I don't have a lot of time to sit here and ramble on, so let's get to the metal. 2016 gave us the debut EP from genre-crushing Philadelphia band, Devil Master. And they had another EP come out in 2017, and then the band popped out of the CD Underground, and they signed with Relapse in 2018, who re-released their demos. They announced the release of their debut album, Satan Spits on Children of Light, and that's coming March 1st. And I've been a big fan and a supporter of Devil Master since basically the word go. So hearing they signed with Relapse was great, but it always leaves you wondering if a little bit more money and a bigger production is going to lose the slimy charm that got you into the band in the first place. But I got my opinion. You be the judge from here. So this one's from their debut EP. Here is Devil Master with The Devil Master. Now here's the latest single from their Relapse debut album release out March 1st. Here is Desperate Shadow from Devil Master. New stuff. obviously bigger production, but it still is heavy and as weird and as creepy as the rest of their output. So kudos, Devil Master Relapse, and whoever the producer is. They really captured what Devil Master is, just kind of made that sound a little bit bigger. So very, very cool. The album is out March 1st. It is Satan Spits on Children of Light from Devil Master. And now let's get back to Derek and the rest of the ARZ crew. And until next time, stay heavy, stay brutal, and I'll see you in the pit.
I say welcome, but hello. This is an episode of The Bottom Shelf, or was it The Bottom Rack? I can't remember. I honestly can't remember. It's been so long. How you doing? Wow, just jumping try. I almost feel like David Lee Roth. Oh, hey you! Who said that, baby? How you been? Yeah, welcome to The Bottom Shelf. I hope everybody had a banging Christmas and an awesome Thanksgiving and whatever the hell else has happened since the last time we talked and chatted. I'm still here. I'm Daniel. Well, my name's Daniel, but my friends call me Daniel, so call me Daniel or whatever you want to call me. And I watch crappy movies. Again, I say that with love. So yeah, we'll jump right to it. I've been watching. I picked a movie off the bottom shelf at Walmart. Or I think it was the bottom. It might have been next to the bottom. Can't remember. Which I love these movies because I'm all about watching independent film, but more so it's like independent film, but there's a certain modicum. I'm a connoisseur of these types of films, and I love the hard sci-fi and fantasy and horror and stuff. I don't care about the human relationship drama. I just don't give a shit. I like really cool laser beams and spaceships, monsters, blood and guts and stuff like that. So that's kind of sort of the movies that I'm looking for at Walmart, but I like looking at the bottom of the shelf. And so that's what this is. Bottom shelf entertainment for your top shelf lifestyle. And oh, buddy, did I watch one. Damn. All right. We're going to keep this, I keep this positive, and I'm in no way going to slam the, well, this one might get strafed a little bit. All right. It's called the Dawn Seeker, like the dish detergent. Like he's seeking the dawn to scrub my eyeballs from having watched this thing. Positive. I am positive there's a movie somewhere in this thing. I couldn't find it, but I'm positive there's one in. Nah, it's serious. Trust me, he did better than I could ever do. Dawn Seeker, which came out in 2018, was written and directed by Justin Price. It's the stars. I don't know. It's nobody I've ever heard of. And yeah, let's see where to begin with this thing. All right. I guess the best way to begin is the synopsis. So let me give you my best 80s rendition voice here. Set in the year 2245, when Earth's sun threatens to wipe out all of humanity, the Dawn Seeker follows 5 hired mercenaries who travel to an uncharted planet to collect a rare mineral known as stardust to replenish their dying star. After their spaceship crashes on the alien planet, they are stalked and hunted by a creature far more advanced than anything they have ever encountered before. Okay, well, first of all, the premise is a lie, or a synopsis. Whenever you look at the cover of this, which is why I picked this up. I mean, look, it's the same as a book, but I'm all, it's like a kid. You show me some aliens, some guts and laser beams and spaceships and shit. I'm picking that thing up quick. Okay. So this thing's called the Dawn Seeker, and you've got what looks like a cross between Lou Gossett Jr.'s character from Enemy Mine and the Predator. Staring off he's just staring off camera, kind of like he's one of those radio rock Christian groups from the mid 90s, and too important to look at the camera. And then down below him, you've got dude and chick with pistols, and then back behind them, there's another dude with pistols and some photoshopped in alien, beak-faced, four-legged alien things. And then in the upper right-hand corner, you've got a ship from StarCraft. No shit. It is literally a ship it belongs to StarCraft. It's a wonder nobody has sued them. Well, maybe that's why the film was on the bottom shelf. I don't know. I can think of a couple of other reasons that I'm going to get to, but again, I say this out of love. Once again, they did more in this film than I could ever do. So, I mean, they've already won. Yeah, let's just try to, man, there's some rough stuff in here. There is a lot going on in this film, and I will go ahead and just constructively say I wish they had taken one story idea, hell, two, hell, three of them, and just focus on those three. But this movie, I mean, you got bionic thumbs, transhumanism, aliens, dystopian cities, spaceships, and political upheaval, and like homage to Halo, Blade Runner, and what the hell else did I write on there? I'm having a hard time. Oh yeah, and Mass Effect. I mean, there is so much going on here, and it's really hard for me to even tell you the freaking story. Honestly, I feel like I missed something with the story. The problem is I don't care enough to go back to watch this. Don't make me watch this film again, please, dear God. Don't make me watch this again. The acting was cool. I'll give it that. And some of the special effects, some of those are pretty god-awful too. But some of them were really cool. Some of the set pieces were really awesome. Even that shoehorned in Blade Runner styled scene. There's a scene at the beginning of the film, near the beginning, that is just completely off the wall. Like, I understand them wanting to put a chick in like this badass situation and let her be a badass or for whatever that fascination is with people. But when at least do it in a film where it fits. You know how like Mila Jovovich is doing that in Resident Evil, and as ludicrous as it is, I'm still in it because it's like, oh, okay, I buy it. You know, whatever. I'm along for the ride because it fits. There's a scene like that shoehorned at like near the beginning of this film that has nothing to do with the movie. You just see her walking around. For some reason, her left eye is like painted to whatever, like stylishly, and in the background you see this Blade Runner-ish dystopian city, but in the foreground where she's at, it looks like the gambling ring in Running Man. And she's walking around in like, you know, skin tight leather suit, this like 2 sizes too small with some thigh high boots, and I think she's got like a couple of weapons on her stuff. And anyway, and so when she looked like she could fight. All right, and so when she walks through a back alley, what do people? There's like 5 or 6 dudes like, I think I'm gonna pick a fight with her. That is so, it's so stupid. That really annoys me. First of all, just that. But then the fact that they just throw it in the movie and it has nothing to do with the film, that pisses me off as well. So anyway, on to the next set piece. Whenever I said that the summary of the film, the synopsis lied. All right, whenever it said they're stalked and hunted by a creature far more advanced than anything they've ever encountered before, that's bullshit. Because when the movie starts, that creature that's in the Christian rock band on the cover, he's their prisoner. So they have encountered him before. In fact, when the movie starts, one of the trope of like the goofy badass guy or whatever is taunting the creature, telling him he can't wait to kill him. So, I mean, anyway, that's another thing that just kind of, man, this thing's rough. I mean, this thing's rough. I am no one to judge, but The Asylum deserves some Oscars with some of their stuff compared to this one. I mean, this is rough, dude. All right. I think I've gone down because like I made a bulleted list of stuff, and then eventually it's just like I forgot. I couldn't even see where I started doodling other shit on my little notepad because it just there was so much going on at the end that I don't care. I can't even follow it. The ship crash lands, and they are still going to go about their mission to get the Stardust to save their star, or for whatever reason. And I'm just sitting here wondering, why go to all that trouble when they could just everybody fly to this planet in the first place, seeing as how the climate is Earth anyway? But whatever. So they're going to all this trouble, and then guess what? Of course, the Faith Plus One guy, the Christian rock musician alien thing, he escapes. And so, like any good alien that would do, if he was in captivity and suddenly has his freedom, he hunts them down. Well, so, I'm hearing Carl's voice in my head. Sort of like the Predator. Only, instead of hunting people, I'm crapping. It is. He's like got wing backpack or something that I guess he had anyway when they imprisoned him. Yeah. The problem with him, when you I don't know, I'm not a filmmaker, bust shots, I guess, profile. When you look at him from the titties up, like from his breastplate, he's got this metal breastplate. From there up, the costume's pretty cool, as long as you don't stay focused on it for too long. When you see like his pants and stuff, it just falls apart. But kudos to the prop maker. I mean, they did what they could do. You do what you got to do. You use what you got. And yeah, it was just unfortunate. The cover art of this movie is freaking rad. Those little chompy beak alien things on the bottom. I'm guessing that's kind of what the summary or the synopsis of the film was alluding to. But that thing's only around for like 2 minutes, 5 minutes maybe, and then they kill it. Doesn't matter. And then somehow or another you get this political upheaval and turns into time travel. And they try to give like this political twist to it, but again, I checked out. I'm like, seriously, I feel like I'm not letting you down. I'm certainly not taking the piss on this one. This movie is just not very good. My knee-jerk reaction, this movie is awful. This is just bad. But like I said, the acting was good. You do what you can do. You work with what you got. And the acting was really good in this. Some of the special effects were awesome. Some constructive criticism, however. All right, the gun props looked really cool. Like, really freaking cool. I'm a gun nut. And so when I watch sci-fi stuff, I like seeing really cool freaking guns, And some of the pistols, actually all the guns that they used, you could tell they were Nerf guns. They've been repurposed Nerf and, foam dart guns like from Walmart and stuff. Really good. However, there's a cross-member piece inside the barrel of these guns, and that's what you put the dart over. Or when you cock it back and you put the ball in there, whenever you pull the trigger, that little cross piece pops out, like that. And that's what, whenever it pops out, it knocks the ball or the dart out, pushing it out of the barrel. And if you just first, like within waving the gun around, like Eddie Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop, with his badge or whatever, you don't notice it. But there's a scene where he's like aiming the gun at the chick's face and the camera is aiming right there. And you could see the cross. I mean, they ain't even trying to hide it. There's a cross member, that piece right there inside the barrel of the gun. And I mean, they painted it. It's just for future reference, maybe take that out. It takes a couple extra minutes. It is, it would add a little more realism to the props. Because like I said, the guns look cool. Did the cover art deliver? Did the movie deliver what the cover art promised? No. And that ultimately, I think that's why I would have to tell you, maybe not watch this one unless you had nothing else to watch. And honestly, that sounds like pretty good criteria. We have discussed this before on Astro Radio Z. I especially remember us talking about the post-apocalyptic films and the wasteland stuff. It's like, does the cover art of the movie, if you're watching the movie, do you see the cover art anywhere? Does the movie pay off that promise that the cover art gives you? And I mean, that's it. So this Dawn Seeker film, are we given what the cover shows us? Not really. We don't really see that many exterior shots of spaceships. We certainly don't see any, I guess that might be the escape pods or whatever flying off. We don't have a alien-fronted Christian rock band. No, we had the alien, and we had the people there with the guns and stuff, but it's just not. This movie wanted to be Predator, and it wanted to be Blade Runner, and it wanted to be Mass Effect, and it wanted to be Aliens, and it wanted to add all kinds of stuff. It wanted to be The Expanse. There's like another hard sci-fi. It wanted to be it's that really awesome show on Netflix, that Altered Carbon. It wanted to be all of these things. It wanted to be Robert Heinlein and Steve Perry, and all jumbled into one. And the problem is whenever you have all those ideas, you tend to forget. It's easier to focus on one or two ideas in a story. Let me put it that way. When you have all these other ideas, unless you're doing a series, it kind of falls apart. And that, honestly, if this dude would refocus your efforts. So if you're listening to this, Justin Price, try a TV series. Like, I bet you you have a big world going on with this thing, and I'd like to see it in a TV series format, because instead of wanting to fit everything in your idea into this one movie, which I also feel like that might have been the case, is like feeling like you've got one shot to do something and you throw everything in there. And it's unfortunate. Hey, believe me, I am guilty of the same thing. But I'd like to see, if this were a TV series, if you told me tomorrow, yeah, I'm gonna write a TV series, I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna watch it. I just feel like there was so much going on. But anyway, that's The Bottom Shelf. The Dawn Seeker, I got to give this one a hard pass. I'm sorry. Really do not pay money for this. Now, that's the pisser too, because on Amazon Prime, it's like a $2.99 rental or something like that. Hell no. 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 I certainly cannot recommend that. If it were Prime free to watch, well, I say free. If you were a member of Prime and you could watch this while as a member of Prime without paying anything extra, screw it, go ahead. I've seen worse. Let's put it that way. I have seen a lot worse. But I am certainly, if I had paid money for this, I would be eating my monitor. I would be furious. Probably write a couple of death metal songs. So anyway, that's The Bottom Shelf. I will be watching more. I have been asked to do these, which is kind of awesome. It does make me feel like somebody somewhere enjoys listening to it. So anyway, that was The Dawn Seeker. I am Daniel, and I will be back later. Maybe I'll find a better one next time. Y'all take it easy.
Alan and Rosalie Bazzini present a film so unbelievably real, proving that the most savage animal on earth is man. Seeds. The borderline so narrow between human desires and animal acts marked these people for destruction. Seeds sown in hatred, sown in lust, blossom into deeds so horrifying. Self-inflicted pain filled with the true pleasures of torture mark their every moment. Seeds. People, no longer in control of their bodies, spend every moment searching for the joys of the flesh. Vengeance, so much a part of their twisted lives, sends their world into a frenzy. Reaching, searching, pleading, denying no one until these primitive desires boil over into uncontrollable passion and violence. To learn the truth about the twisted lives of these people, you must see this motion picture. See.
Speaking of shrill incest and people draining blood out of old ladies for no reason whatsoever, and people getting electrocuted with melon-heavy breasts in bathtubs. Vaughn, you want to describe to the listeners of Astro Radio Z, what is the plot for Seeds?
Oh, God, really?
Yeah, good luck with this one.
Okay.
Can I just read the list of characters in this? Because I wrote them down.
Yes, Evan, go for it. Do you think this will help? You think this will help Vaughn in some way?
I think I have an idea. So this is it.
Go ahead.
And I'll read. This is kind of a concept. So it's an angry alcoholic matriarch of a family terrorizes and and pretty much treats them all like shit. Pretty much what happens is that you have the mother of this great family who seems to have had many loves and many husbands. It's pretty much on her like 14th husband at the time. Her youngest daughter invites all the rest of her brothers and sisters over for the night, and the mother is not particularly happy about this. Yada yada yada, tits, a lot of naked bathing, a lot of sex, a couple of roughy scenes, and it all culminates in a beautiful staircase rumble, if you know what I mean. It's a fun film. You can definitely see that the guy went from this, and if we were able to get the 8 films that were made between Vapors and this, you can see the definite hike of glory that he's making as he's getting up the rungs of the independent films. Well, am I kidding myself? It seems like he's just completely thrown himself down the hill when he made this film, because it reminds me a lot of those kind of like, okay, we're gonna make this quick, we're gonna make this dirty, like let's get a whole bunch of people, all these women who are like, are you willing to be naked? I'm not paying you anymore. Are you willing to show your tits? Okay, good, get in. You're in. You want to show your tits? You're in. You're the old lady. I don't want to see your tits. You're out. You know what I mean? Like even the woman who's supposed to play the matriarch, she is in like 12 pounds of makeup and and wearing like a veil, and they're like, oh, she looks great as an old lady, huh? She looks as young as her youngest daughter. What are you kidding me? And the father will just put an eye patch on him. That makes him look old. Yeah.
I love that.
Or the doctor that looks like some dude they just pulled off the fucking street.
The doctor looks like what's his name? What's Goulardi? Looks like,
yes,
you know what I mean? It's like, what the fuck? Okay, sure, that works.
Cram.
Yeah,
this definitely has, as we had talked about before. There's a relation and a link between John Waters and Andy Milligan in Seeds of Sin. 1000% is that movie. It feels like the same kind of thing that Waters was doing with the Dreamlanders, where there's a troop of people that know each other, are willing to go the extra mile and do whatever the fuck they can to make some trashy, fun little movie. Only the difference between what Waters was doing and Milligan is doing is Milligan's way more into the psychodrama than Waters, who's into satire and comedy.
Yeah, definitely. So
if you stripped all of the comedy, I mean, there's black comedy within Seeds of Sin for sure throughout its entire runtime, but it is played 100% straight.
Mm-hmm.
As if you're watching some drama from the 60s, some black and white drama. Now,
you can definitely tell like his independent theater background is in there, because definitely all these people know their lines. They all are competent, which is great. You do get some films later where you definitely know that he had one good actor and he found everybody else on the street. You know what I mean? Like the Ghastly ones, the main guy in that film, he's the main actor, and everybody else is some kind of like low end friend or something like that. In this film, at least, it feels like everybody knows what they're doing. Everybody knows how to react. Like all the girls scream properly. They don't overdo it. It's just a really trashy fucking story.
Yeah.
You have this pissed off old lady who doesn't want to see the rest of her kids. She fucking freaks out. Anytime something that happens that she doesn't want to happen, she just gets pissed. And they have to like knock her out.
Which is constantly.
Which is every fucking minute. And for some odd reason, the only way that really evens her out is if they drain about a pint of blood out of her, which did they explain to that, or was I just like, did I completely overlook that? Like,
supposed to be some sort of cure, like the back in the day when somebody was poisoned or somebody had an ailment, they just drained a little blood out of them.
Okay, yeah. So she's constantly getting blood drained out of her. No wonder she looks like an old raisin. And she's constantly talking about like her ex-husbands, and how like the current husband she has now and the current daughter she has with him, she loves her sometimes. It's all according to what day and what hour, or how much drinking she's done, because sometimes when she's completely sober, she can't stand her, but after she's had a couple of beers, she's like, oh, I love you, you're the best. And that daughter is obsessed with one of her other sons, one of her older sons who's married. And they may have had a fling before he got married.
Oh, they definitely had a fling.
Right?
It was more than inferred that through the course of their childhood, they had been schlepping.
They've had sex at one time,
many times.
But all the other brothers and sisters or brothers had all moved out, and now they're coming home for this one weekend, and like you have the friggin' dinner scene, which is just ridiculous. It's like let's put 35 people on the smallest table in the world, in the smallest room in the world, and have them try to converse with each other. While like 4 or 5 of them are smoking. It's like, oh, that's just like, what the fuck? There's plenty of sex scenes, which I love that. And the sex scenes are where it's like, and now I've always wanted to ask this. At the beginning of your film, is there a weird sex scene at the start of the film and the copies you guys have seen? Where it's like a guy with 2 girls on top of him, kind of like doing some of weird like yoga. You know what I mean?
No, the first sex scene in the version that I watched was between the help. Were the 2 people that were plotting against, like the caretakers that were plotting against the mother.
I remember correctly. I think it's like 2 blondes and a guy. They're like they're like laying on top of him and they're just doing some weird kind of poses all over him. And then the movie cuts into the beginning of the film where she's getting pissed off about the daughter. So
I'm wondering if that's the Something Weird video.
Yeah, that might be it.
Seeds of Evil.
That's the one. Well, that's the copy I have. It's called Seeds of Evil. So that might be it. So interesting.
I'll have to watch that version. That sounds a lot more exciting than it just starts off. I have a feeling that was just cut in there for the video crowd.
Because it starts in and she's pissed because she's like, well, they called and I invited them to stay, and she's like, why did you fucking do that? And she's like, well, why? She's like, I can't stand any of them. And it's like, oh, okay, that's a great way to start a fucking a slog of a film. And the father just stands there with his eye patch looking pissed.
No, was he supposed to be the father? I thought he was just a caretaker.
I think he was, because she keeps referencing, like, if your father wasn't here, if your father wasn't still alive, I'd definitely get rid of you. And
so he was one of her many husbands.
That's what I felt like.
Well, she reveals to Barbara that he's her father, like while we're watching the movie.
Wow, I missed that completely.
Yeah. And he probably lost an eye in one of the many bloodletting affairs, because it seems like when they throw her on the bed and they try to hold her down and they don't get the ether to her in time, he probably lost an eye midway through one of those many bloodletting attempts.
Oh,
Mortimer.
Yeah.
Well, they're all, I mean, as the movie goes along, these people are all together, which would be a motif in a lot of Milligan movies going forward, where you have this strong matriarch who is a complete ice cold asshole and fucks up everybody's lives by treating them like complete and utter fucking dirt. And you have the rest of the family that have come together for some reunion, be it because of experiments or because one of them have died and the will is being read, or they all think that they're going to get money because the matriarch, the mom's about to die at some point. So they got to get there and get on the good side, blah, blah, blah. And then hijinks ensue through the rest of the movie. This movie starts shrill with these people. You have the mom, the husband, which I never caught that whatsoever. That's amazing. In the 2 times that I watched this movie, I didn't catch that. The youngest daughter, and the caretakers. Then the youngest daughter invites the rest of the family back so that they could have one huge hurrah, mostly because she wants to fuck her brother. I mean, that's the whole reason why they brought her back. But then as they're all back and they're, bed swapping in between rooms, I think at some point they all fucked each other.
Well,
that's what I got out of it.
Well, sisters or wives are bouncing off each other rooms. Like it's definitely like a weird kind of melodrama soap opera going on between all the brothers and sisters. Like, either it's brother's girlfriend is going into the other room with the other brother, or the brother's wife, or the brother's going. It's like, okay, or the youngest daughter, the youngest sister is like going around fucking around with people.
And I was interested in the priest Matthew. He kind of he's shown as another bad seed, which is basically the where the title comes from.
Yeah,
These are all the mother calls them bad seeds, and Matthew, or it's revealed that Matthew sort of corrupted the youngest, Buster,
which is the young boy who went away to private school, right?
Yeah, who's been like thrown out of every school that he's been to by starting fires and all kinds of stuff. Like everybody is an absolute psychopath.
Well, because it comes out through the movie that he was molested when he was young.
Yeah.
I caught that.
Yeah. When Buster, when he meets his end, which is by his own hand, he screams something. I don't know if you guys could
I don't remember.
He
At
says,
this point, I don't remember.
"Oh man, he's out there. He's out in the woods after throwing a tantrum, and he runs away. And spoiler alert, cuts his wrist with a rock, and he screams. He says, 'This is the color of Michael.'"
Oh God!
As far as I could tell, he says, "This is the color of Michael," talking about his blood.
That's beautiful.
Get that, but Michael's the oldest, I think. But yeah, and Buster also says to his mother, "A bad seed comes from a diseased plant." So,
well, yeah, she's the diseased plant.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
But the thing is, so who was the killer in this fucking movie?
Oh my God, I don't know.
Was it the youngest? Because like you get like I couldn't really tell, and then like at the very end when she's like, "Oh, you did it all to the youngest daughter," who and she just gets pissed. Finally, she gives up, like kind of keeping the whole charade, and pushes her down the stairs.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if they're supposed to, if they meant to leave that somewhat ambiguous, because the last man standing is Mortimer.
Yeah,
and he's fine with it all. He just calls the police. It sounds like he's gotten what he maybe wanted all this time. So does that put into question who's the one that was pulling the radio into the bathtub and everything?
Yeah. One thing you'll notice, Evan, when you get past this film and you get to the other ones, like the Ghastly Ones and The Body Beneath, a lot of those films have one thing where it is an angry family member, usually the father or the mother, who are holding some kind of like they're holding like the family estate over the rest of the kids' heads.
Right.
And that's what this is the first one of these films. Where it's like this is the matriarch mother who hates everyone else, and she doesn't seem like she has much to hold over their head. She just doesn't seem to like them much.
Well, they're just so fucked up in the head that she's basically degraded them most of their lives to the point where they just will listen and do whatever she says to them.
Right.
It's just kind of like that Stockholm syndrome kind of.
It changes drastically in the next couple of films where it's mostly the matriarch of the family is holding the estate or like whatever kind of fortune these kids are going to
it's money
later in the films, and it's an ongoing thing with him. It seems like with a couple of his films. Like I don't know, like I think if I remember correctly, I think his father was well off.
Yep, a lot of it's from what I understood. He had a horrible relationship with his mother, who was ice cold and treated him like trash. So a lot of this, when you watch the movies, you can definitely tell he pulled and gleaned a lot from his own life to put in. That's why there's like 5 movies that are essentially the same fucking plot.
Well, there's 2 that is directly the same freaking
movie.
It's just different timelines. There are 5 or 6 where it's the same concept. Just keep going to the next film, to the next film, to the next film. Where he keeps bringing up the whole, he had a lot of parent issues, so I guess he just kept writing it into stories because it's a good way to fucking write a horror movie. It's like have an angry parent and then have the kids or have somebody in the family kill everybody off one by one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great concept. So just keep running it into the ground. But you can definitely tell that he, like with Vapors, he continued with his films to continue. Let me pull off my own life. Which is I always thought interesting. Edward didn't start doing that till the end.
He was more interested in fantasy and pulp and stuff
like that. When the porno stuff started, he was getting more into like, let me put my own life. I mean, Glenn and Glenda is different because that was definitely something
very biographical, yeah.
But like the later films, it's the pornos and the kind of offshoot kind of softcore films. He pulled a lot from his life. And in this with Milligan, he seemed like he just was like, okay, I have so much kind of grief, I guess, and within my own kind of upbringing, and that it's like I'll just keep bringing it up in films, and it makes good, good fodder. So why not?
Well, let's also say that in the way we're going to break up these episodes, there's a reason why we're going to do it instead of the way that I did it with John Waters, where it was movie by movie by movie. We're going to break this up by year.
Yeah,
because there are years in the first part of his career where he made 4 movies in a year.
Yep.
And they're all very similar. Mm-hmm. So I have a feeling, because from what I understand is that he was making all of these movies off of split ends. He had a location and a crew of people that he worked with over and over and over again, kind of like the Dreamlanders, and they ad-libbed a lot of this. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of these movies that would come up, not so much Torture Dungeon, but some of the other ones were ad-libbed.
Well, this film feels like an actual script. It feels like everybody's working off something. It doesn't feel like anybody's kind of doing whatever they want. The sex scenes definitely feel like these people know each other or at least have been intimate with each other, because there are blatantly scenes where it looks like they're having sex, just they don't show penetration. You see guys humping women completely naked, and if they have a cock on their a sock on their cock, you don't really see that. But these people don't seem to be bothered by being that intimate with each other. And even when they get violent with each other, it seems like they've either rehearsed this or they've done this to each other before quietly by themselves. You know what I mean? Like there are some scenes where like some of these women are getting choked out, where it feels like they're actually like, as they're screaming for in bloody terror, it feels like they've actually have done this with the same person, probably on their own on a Saturday night. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'm sure they basically all lived together. From what I understood, Candy Hammond was actually married to Milligan at this time for a year. And she's the youngest, the one that's doing all the fucking around, I believe.
Yeah, the youngest sister. Yeah.
Right. So that would make a lot of sense. Now, this movie in general, as we had said before, it's funny. We put this one together with Vapors. Both are in black and white. Mm-hmm. This one looks a lot better than Vapors, but at the same time, still handheld. So there's a lot of dynamic camera angles. He gets really in there with the camera, but at the same time, it's shaky as fuck. It's constantly being canted. The camera's being thrown all over the place. The editing sloppy as hell. It creates this frantic, crazy, manic energy that the performances, we keep saying, are very shrill and very over the top and very in your face, but it's also what's being done with the camera and how the movie is paced and moving, that this movie, you start to feel anxious in your fucking chest as you watch it. What did you think of how, like, the craft of this, Evan?
Oh yeah, I completely agree. I love, like you were saying before. I mean, apparently, when we get to some of his other movies, he's just going to set a camera up and have actors do stuff in front of it. But this thing, he's getting way in there. He's got weird angles, like aimed up through the spiral, or not the spiral staircase, but you're looking all the way, up into the second floor of the house in some of these shots, and like those sex scenes. I don't know if you guys could tell, but can you hear the direction being told to the actors? Because there's a scene where you can hear it mumble.
Yeah, there's some. I mean, just like with Vapors, where you would definitely hear the camera skittering on the audio.
Yep.
In this film, well, you'll notice this as it goes. And, like Evan, when you go into that middle section when we get there, you'll notice there'll be some scenes where he literally is yelling at people. And it's just, it gets cut out very quickly. You can hear him doing directions to people because like Derek said, some of these films were just ad-libbed on the spot. Like he had a concept, he said, let's do it. And they did it. And he was just throwing things at people as they were going. And there's probably like some slight murmur on the audio of certain scenes because it's, He's not an auteur. He's making this shit on the cheap, trying to get a budget, trying to get a movie made in a certain amount of time.
Well, on that note, Derek, you mentioned, and I've read this before, that this is done with split ends, right? So that's like cheap film that's left over from other productions or whatever. Do you think
it's the stuff that was unused.
Yeah, so you only get a shot, or you don't get many takes, and it seems like they lean really hard into screaming everything. It's almost like, well, we can't make a mistake if you're yelling.
Well, these aren't actors. These are, I mean, even though some of them may have come from theater backgrounds, these are some of these, especially in latter Milligan, these are just people.
Well, like I said, with this film, I feel like this film, they either knew what they were doing before they walked into it, or they either rehearsed something, because there's some films later where lines get flubbed like crazy.
Oh yeah,
like things get fucked up, and he doesn't care because he doesn't have the time or the money to do it.
Well, he definitely doesn't have the extra film to be able to retake that stuff.
When this film, it feels natural. You know what I mean? It feels like these people are a family in a weird way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it feels a little more worked out. Yeah, it feels a lot more worked out compared to like the stuff that's going to happen later when we get to them. But this film feels more like a normal film. And I think I think as like with Derek saying that he would pop out 4 films at a time. I think when it became that time, it was just like, let's get this done. Yeah. And now he's to that point where it's like, he actually had the time to make a movie. He was able to make 2 movies a year. And it was like, okay, I can take the time and work on something, And it's just as he got old, as the years got more and more, the films got more and more. Let's get it out. Let's like a chopping, just chopping them out, And this film feels like, even like I said, a lot of the stories in the later 60s, early 70s are going to feel like, oh, we're just repeating the same shit over and over again. This feels like the start of that cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. This feels like something from somebody that this was a story he wanted to tell. And it's, I mean, regardless of the fact that the actors are all really overwrought, they really just run for it. It's interesting, like the way, because it's paced so quickly, there's no breathing room for any of this. It just pops from one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. It's an exploitation film straight through, and it's not the kind of boring dirge that, as you had said, we would come to know of Andy Milligan movies. This movie is, if you are a fan of, as I had said before, early John Waters, this is right up your fucking alley. I love these 2 movies tonight. There are 4 movies that I've seen so far of all of his movies that I genuinely would watch again. Seeds is definitely among them.
Right.
It is the darkest of comedies.
Yeah.
Even though there's no real jokes in it. It's just it's camp in a way that I love camp, where it's genuine, it feels real, it's over the top, and people are just fucking going for it. And the energy is balls to the wall. So this is a huge thumbs up for me. Evan?
Oh yeah, I loved this. This, like I said, was the first movie that I saw, and this is what made me really excited about Milligan. And who knows if that's going to pay off? It sounds like it may not. But
keep an open mind, man.
I will.
Don't be a Derek, okay? For God's sakes, relax.
There's only one of me. There can only be one of me. This is years upon years of hatred of Andy Milligan that's culminated into this opinion.
Yeah, no one can get that curmudgeonly.
Get off my fucking lawn, Vaughn.
I was just what you were talking about the humor in the movie, and I think that the humor, you're right. There's no jokes, but it's found in the absolute over the top nihilism that he piles onto this thing. Like
the characters
when I was watching
awful. There's not a good person in this movie.
And that was a note that I made. As you're watching the movie, you find out everybody is an absolute piece of shit and they have no conscience at all. And then, but there's one guy, you kind of feel for Buster for a while until he starts talking about Hitler. Like, and I just started.
You start to feel so something for each and every person in this movie until something so fucked up happens. Like one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and I'll let you finish your thought there in just a second, is the lead female, Candy Hammond. There's this scene where she goes off to her room and pulls out a bunch of muscle mags.
Yes.
So she's on her bed with these magazines that are obviously for gay men to sit and look at, these muscle bound dudes. And she starts jilling off to these magazines. It's so fucking funny. It is so ridiculous. The music that's over top of it and everything.
The music is so. I watched it with subtitles, and the way they described that music was perky.
But you're 100% right, Evan. Like at some point, each and every one of these characters will do something where you're like, yeah, that person's a real fucking shitheel. They're questionable.
Well, so on that same note, there's several deaths that happen in this movie, and one of them is Michael's wife, Susan.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a scene like soon after. I think she's the one that accidentally stabbed herself, or not accidentally. She was going to stab herself, and then whoever the killer is, helps it along by slamming a door into the knife. So this is Michael's wife, and then early in the morning, the cops must have come. They say, because they mention it. They say, "Oh, the cops just left at 3 a.m." And then like the next day, those two, what did I write? The next day, Michael is discussing Susan's death with his sister Carol, and they act like nothing bad happened. Like he doesn't care.
Yeah, he doesn't care. Well, that's the thing. That's the thing that all these characters are, because they're so kind of fucked up from their mother treating them like shit, that they have like no real emotional compass. You know what I mean? They have they're married to these people, but when something happens to them, they just don't give a fuck about it. It's just they just throw it away.
Which makes it hard to buy Matthew's suicide, because like he somehow, basically Carol causes him to commit suicide, because Carol basically comes on to Matthew, her brother, who apparently this has never happened before. And she teases him until he finally gives in, and then she walks away. Yeah. And so then he hangs himself. But I was thinking, where is this newfound conscience?
Yeah.
In Matthew. Matthew doesn't care about God or anything. He even says as much early on. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if all of this fits together exactly the way that Milligan wanted to. I mean, you got to have some kind of pathos or whatever, but it seems to me that everybody is just supposed to be the absolute most psychopathic.
Yes.
I basically was thinking of it like in Freudian terms. I was thinking like these people have no sense, like Vaughn, you were saying, they have no emotional compass. They basically have no super ego. They are only id, and the expression of that, their ego. They have no third component. They have no reference to a higher civility or anything,
or any concept of anyone outside of themselves.
Yeah,
whatsoever.
Yeah, but it still seems to furnish some kind of internal world for them. Like they still seem to care about things. Like they still get mad at each other about stuff, and they still get worried and guilt, and it just doesn't. It's weird. It's weird that they would have that kind of an internal world at all.
Yeah.
It's funny having a conversation about stuff like this concerning a movie as downright trashy as this. Because it through and through, it's a trash film. There's no doubt about it. This is not going to appeal to most normie film viewers.
No.
Nope. This is for the exploitation fans. If you're a fan of really trashy shit, you're gonna love this fucking movie.
Yep.
I did. Total thumbs up on this fucking gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the fucking way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's I couldn't show this to like half the people I know, because they'd be like, "Oh, this is dumb," and then walk out of the room.
Well, it's also really dirty too. I mean, there's a lot of nudity.
I think that's what would get most of my friends into the movie. Would be all the sex scenes and the nudity, because they'd be like, oh, But I think when it's like you get this kind of weird storyline and like no one's really relatable, I think that's where like half the people I know would kind of like bail out, because it's like they need to have somebody in there.
Sure, they need to have the straight person in there.
Yeah, and there's all these people are horrible. Like even the doctor's a piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like no one, like, because the doctor's like, well, it took us 2 days. Like it's like they were like, they didn't, like, no one in this house is anybody you can get behind. You know what I mean? You want the place to burn down while they're all sleeping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I've had movies where that was the case, and I didn't like the movie on that account. But this one I liked. I was interested in the way it was going, because there was a little bit of a sort of a plot that you were kind of interested in, a little mystery, and also just the personality of Milligan probably is just center of it. It's I don't like any of these characters, but I want to know what Milligan's doing.
Where's this fucking going? Yeah. That's half the time when I'm watching most of Milligan's movies, I ask myself at some point, inevitably, where the fuck is this going?
And as you ask that, that's when the car goes off the road and into the ravine. It's like,
There's definitely, as boring as some of these movies are, and Seeds definitely isn't one of them, but as we go along, there is a definite voice at work. Yep. In some of this stuff, and it's shocking, but because I never growing up watching this stuff, man, we had grown up with these movies looking like dog shit. They were always on these VHS, just look like 57th generation dubs of these fucking movies. They look like horse shit. They sound like horse shit, because Andy Milligan comes from the school of sound design and sound recording, where you place the microphone for your principal actors in a different room than they're in. So you can't hear a fucking word that they're saying. So that's probably half the reason why they're screaming
in the first drawer of the dresser and close the dresser door. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. Now, give me your lines. Okay. I scream louder. Okay. The
reverb is louder than the direct sound that's being recorded into the microphone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
I like that over modulation too. It's almost like blown out, like good lo-fi music or something like that.
You're right.
There's something weird video releases of this. Like I know that when the Vinegar Syndrome put it out, they remastered the whole fucking thing, so it sounds a little better.
Oh, it's great.
But the Vinegar Syndrome, the original, Something Weird, Mike Verney did a lot of work on trying to make those films, look good, even though like they didn't have the kind of work, the technology they have now, but they still are fun films to watch, even though they are black and white and they look like the original prints were kind of not the best. And
right,
but I still enjoy those old Something Weird tapes. But yeah, the Vinegar Syndrome disc probably makes it look 100 times better than what I grew up watching, what I still watch for this show.
It's beautiful. The release is beautiful. The blacks and the whites are crisp. There's some damage. What I really appreciate about that release, the new release, is that there's a lot of handheld shake in this movie, and it's totally not intentional. No. It's totally because he's just running everywhere trying to capture this, and most people would go in and try and stabilize that footage.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't do any of it. It is what it is.
Thank God.
So I would definitely recommend picking up the Vinegar Syndrome disc of this, because it looks great.
Maybe their next sale, I might pick it up.
It's totally worth it. So that's Seeds of Sin, Seeds from 1968, folks. It's the first episode of our Andy Milligan director series that we're doing, that I'm going to blame all on Evan. He's the one I'm going to blame, all the trauma that I've gone through, everything I'm doing.
I'll take it.
He's going to be the whipping boy for this. But I'm also excited going forward to see what Evan thinks of the movies coming up. Now, I think our next episode, what we're going to do, because we decided we were going to do this in years.
Yep.
But we're kind of cheating, because Seeds was made the same year as the Ghastly ones.
Yeah, but we don't know the release dates for these films.
Yeah, that's true.
So
It's true. So the next episode, I think what we'll do is this will be a good twofer, another double feature. We'll do the Ghastly Ones and Torture Dungeon, which were made respectively in 1968 and 1969.
Yeah.
So now we're going away from black and white Milligan, which, in my opinion, his movies work much better in black and white than they do in color. The color, for some reason, shows off how cheap every fucking thing looks and is in his movies, especially on the Blu-ray re-releases of this stuff. Holy shit, does his sets look and costuming look cheap.
He's doing it in someone's house. Yeah.
But the black and white covers it all up and makes it look stylish. But anyway, so that'll be the next episode that we'll do in a month or whenever the fuck we get around to doing that next episode. That's what it's going to be like here now on Astro Radio Z. Is I have a life and other things to do, so we'll get around to this bullshit when we get around to this bullshit.
How dare you?
Yep. So you'll just have to fucking wait. You had to wait a year to get this episode. I think you can wait a month. So I want to thank my boys that came on here, Evan and Vaughn. Thank you for deciding to do this with me. This is going to be interesting. The only way I could have done this is with two people that actually like this shit.
Yep.
There's no way it could have just been crotchety old Derek's coming on this.
Derek, this may change with the next episode. Evan may be on your side.
I don't want to plant seeds into Evan's head about what he's about to come to. I want him to go in fresh.
Seeds of sin. Don't plant seeds of sin in me.
Go, baby. You'll get the seeds of sin. But I'm excited to hear what is said on the next episode. So look for that one now. This is the portion of the show where we shamelessly shill the fuck out of you. Evan, do you have a single thing in the entire world that you want to shill on my podcast?
No, absolutely not. This is the first podcast I've ever done.
What do you think of that? How did it turn out for you?
Pretty fun. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I thank you very much for coming on the show. I know this was a lot to ask, but you are to blame for this. So that's why this is happening. So you had to come on. I had to have you come on. But Vaughn, you always have shit to shill. So shill.
Podcastmaniafun.com is a podcast I do occasionally. We may be recording an episode next Monday, maybe, if it doesn't snow another foot in Canada. Motionpicturemassacre.wordpress.com is the podcast I do normally by myself. You can hear a man talk to himself for 40 minutes every so many weeks. What am I doing for that show? I was supposed to record with you, Derek, but that got pushed back a couple of weeks. So I decided to jump on stuff, and I'm going to cover by the time this comes out, this episode will probably come out. It's going to be a 2009 film called Macho Tail Drop and Still Dead, which I can't wait to do. If you don't care to listen to any of that, kill yourself. But besides that, it's been fun talking to you two guys.
I think that's a good way to end the show. Kill yourselves, people. We started off the show acting like grumpy old fucks saying how much we hate horror podcasts.
Yep.
And let's end it by just saying, you know what? Don't listen or don't go out there. Don't make any horror podcasts. Stop making horror podcasts. Stop bringing back dead horror podcasts. Just kill you.
Yeah. Definitely.
Time slips away and I lose another day.
You can find Astro Radio Z on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, TuneIn, and anywhere that podcasts are found. Please subscribe, share, rate, and review. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and email us questions, concerns, or just general chatter at astroradiozpodcast@gmail.com. You want to hear more than just the regular show? Go over to our Patreon page at patreon.com/allthegimmicks and get not only bonus episodes of ARZ, but other podcasts like All the Gimmicks and the podcast at Orgy Castle, all for the low price of $1 a month. Coming from me, Derek Carey, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time, Astro Zombies.
To that world beyond our days. If we walk in the sun, we'll have peace when it's done. Full circle comes around. Don't feel the underground. 'Cause you know. So I take it real slow, and you know, that everything goes better, wow, wow, wow. So you know, so I take it real slow, and you know, that everything goes better, wow, wow, so when time slips away, all the